Morning, all. All right, so some news of the day today. I didn't have a news video yesterday. A, hockey was on all day, and B, it's after the trade deadline. Things go really, really quiet after the trade deadline. The next time it really picks up, getting ready for the draft, and of course the draft lottery and everything that happens around that. But yeah, in terms of rumors of who might go somewhere, it's all gone. And Matthias Ekholm's still a Predator. I never saw the point in them trading him if they had. I really didn't. So I'm glad he's still in Nashville. That was a smart move, not moving him, which very often is the smartest move a GM can make. So the Canucks. Speaking of moves, it looks like their relationship with Utica is done after this year. They have an out, so they have an agreement with Utica beyond this season, but there's an out at the end of this season, and it looks like it may be mutual, as Utica themselves have trademarked Utica Devils. So it looks like the Utica Devils return. I'm old enough to remember that Utica Devils logo, which was fantastic. So yes, I would be getting a Utica Devils jersey because the New Jersey Devils logo works very well with the U. And yeah, I remember. I'm old. Yeah. So the Canucks are likely to leave Utica, and the idea being looking maybe in BC. So it could work here in Abbotsford as an example, but it could work in Victoria. It could work in Kelowna. Those would, I think, be the three cities they'd look at. And, we'll see what happens. But I think that maybe what we've gone through over the last 12 months has finally caused the Canucks to say, our farm team should probably be within, I don't know, a maximum of two time zones, not three or more than that. So yeah, being that far away, and again, I love what Utica's done. I think they've been a solid affiliate. I think they'll be great for the Devils. It's so far from Vancouver. So I really hope they make the right decision here. And again, I don't care which town they go to, whether it's Abbey, Victoria, maybe they go to Langley. Vancouver Giants have a nice building in Langley. They could technically put it in Vancouver and play out of the Pacific Coliseum. So there are options there, and we'll see what they do. Tonight's game will be without Demko, Mott, and Ulevy are the three players who still will not be playing. Hockey players are having a really hard time getting over. And again, it was the P1 variant. That was confirmed that it was the Brazilian variant that went through the team. So they did have a rough time of it, and it definitely took longer for them to get back up to speed than it has for other players so far this year. So hopefully everything goes well for them. And they're saying all the right things about how, they're not coming back just to play. They're coming back because they think they have a chance to win and do something. So fingers crossed on that. And there was talk last night. So on Hockey Night in Canada, they were talking about the Canadian team situation. So of course we don't have fans in attendance in the Canadian cities. So I don't think this is necessarily a huge deal, but it's possible the Canadian playoffs, those four teams will be put into a bubble on the American side of the border. And then Chris Johnston kind of at the end goes, well, then maybe they can get vaccinated too if they're in the States. And it was shh. You could just kind of hear the don't talk about shh. So, but that was the first thing I thought of was, yeah, if you put them in the U.S., you would probably put them in a situation where they can get vaccinated, and it would be a bubble situation for about a month. It wouldn't be the kind of bubble situation they were in last year. It wouldn't be anywhere near the amount of cost as last year's bubbles were. They don't want to do that again. And the American teams if you're watching in the U.S., all the American teams should be playing in their home rinks. That's not affected as the four Canadian teams who may very well be in a bubble, and it may very well be on the American side of the border. So we'll see, because again, the numbers on this side of the border are, well, they're bad. So I don't blame the NHL for looking at this as an option, and because they don't want to shut things down during the playoffs. That would be, just the logistics of one team getting shut down during the playoffs. Okay, so they're down for 2 weeks. Now what? Or what if they're down for 3 weeks? Like it doesn't work. So they want to make sure the playoffs get finished with what they start. So best of luck to the NHL on that. It feels like it's more of a challenge this year than last year. So yeah. Washington, the game that's being played now between the Caps and the Bruins. I don't get the feeling these teams like each other very much. I get the feeling that they're kind of tired of seeing one another. Chara's not playing today. In the last game, he blocked some shots, and the freakish thing on the play, if you watch the replay, it looks like he takes 3 shots to roughly the same area of the same ankle. And he is 9'6" in height. He's 10.5 feet tall on skates. That may or may not be off by like 2 feet, but he is large, and I would imagine being that much taller, if your ankle's bothering you, it probably bothers you more than it would for somebody who's anyway. Yeah, so Chara, hopefully he's not out for very long. It is a shame he's not in this game today against Boston. It is fun to see him against Boston, as weird as it is. So hopefully he's able to come back as soon as possible. Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc, they were punished in game last night by the Minnesota Wild, and their coach not pulling punches on. Yeah, no, they don't belong in the top 6 with the way they were playing tonight. And so you wonder, like, in the offseason, there are some changes that have to be made by San Jose. And Doug Wilson's been clear that he doesn't want to make moves with the core, that he feels like this is a team that can win. So could potentially either Timo Meier or Kevin Labanc be the one that moves, like the first piece that goes. Bob Boughner, I think he's pretty secure as the coach. I don't think there's any chance he loses his job in the offseason. That being said, it's a coaching job. You are as good as your last game if you're the coach. So I don't know, but Meier has had a rough season. He's gone through long droughts. Labanc is still a good player. I think of the two, you'd probably have an easier time moving Labanc, just for cap reasons. Be easier to move Labanc than Meier, I would think. But we'll see what happens, right? San Jose should be fascinating to watch in the offseason and see if things get better, or if they do stay the course, or if they don't. Yeah. And speaking of which, let's talk about Columbus just for a little bit. So Columbus, Domi had a rough night last night, and now he's number 2 in the NHL in penalty minutes, behind Olivier of the Nashville Predators, who is basically an enforcer player for them. So Max Domi, who when he came into the league, all we heard before he came in was, okay, he's not like his dad. He's not going to lead the league in penalty minutes. He doesn't. That's not his game. It's getting there. He had 14. It was 14 minutes in penalty minutes again last night. So that's 28 minutes in penalty minutes in the last week. He's having a really rough time of it in Columbus. And the interesting thing is, of course, you know, he's traded out of Montreal in the offseason. He was traded out of Arizona as well. I don't know where things go from here. It has the feelings of what could become a Vancouver Canucks reclamation project. I get the feeling that's where this could end up, that he ends up being a reclamation project for the Canucks. I could see that. And yet, you know, he's still young enough that a team should take a chance with him, but it doesn't feel like it's working in Columbus. So, yeah, for Domi, it's been a long season. I still think the talent is there, but he definitely has that frustration level. And, yeah, when that boils over, he ends up in the box, right? So we'll see how things go for Columbus rest of the way. They're also going to be really interesting to watch. Columbus and San Jose might be the 2 of the more interesting teams to watch in the offseason. Ottawa used to be, but now it's kind of like, okay, well, they've got all their young kids. They got everything figured out. They got all the draft picks. Well, we'll just wait and see what happens, right? So, Boston news. Here's something interesting. So, Yarrow Halak, who's been out, he's been on the COVID list for 2 weeks. He could be at practice tomorrow. So, he came off the list, off the protocol list. He had tested positive, and now he could be back in their practice tomorrow. Of course, Swayman's been very good. So, there will be Bruins fans who are saying, well, that's nice, but maybe you should wait and just make sure. Are you sure we don't want you to get hurt? So why don't you just go ahead and Swayman's fantastic. So why don't you we'll see. It's hard not to get somewhat excited about how things have been going for Boston, because it's starting to feel like it does when they get on a roll. So we'll see if that lasts or not. I wanted to close out too with something I said on the power rankings last night that got a lot of traction. When I said Florida passed Carolina, I didn't mean in the standings. I meant on the board. And power rankings do not reflect standings. They shouldn't reflect standings. Because here's the thing. If they reflect standings, then it's just, here's the standings. And then a team could go 0-4 on the week, and you go, yeah, but they're still first in their division, so ta-da, they're still first. So, yeah, it shouldn't reflect standings. It should reflect who's playing better at the time. Because here's the thing. National Hockey League, where we do have a lot of parity, at playoff time, that really shows up, because a team that fights and scratches and claws its way for first in the division can sometimes be going home 10 days later, and we're all throwing our arms in the air and going, what happened there? Well, the team they were against was ready for them, familiar with them, and knew their weaknesses, so they're gone. And then that GM's left scratching his head, because everything looked really good up until then. But sometimes the teams that are at the top aren't playing very well going into the playoffs. And, I mean, historically, the teams that are playing really well going into the playoffs usually do really well in the playoffs. And that can get ignored as well. And very often it's not necessarily the top team that's playing really well going into the playoffs. So, and yeah, it's just power rankings. It's fun. Updated every day. And I always the other part that I always find entertaining is that if I did the power rankings on a different day of the week, there'd be completely different fan bases complaining for completely different reasons. And yeah, so anyways, there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's another early night for hockey tonight, so I may end up doing another video after the review tonight. I'm considering doing a video after the review tonight, just because it's early in the evening. I might as well. We'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a ton. And I will talk to you again soon. And have yourself a wonderful Sunday.